afternoon, everybody. Today is the last day of Women's History Month. So I thought I'd take a couple of minutes to discuss what women might want. Okay. So I did write out some notes, so just bear with me while I pull that up. Hopefully I'm light enough here. Let me see if my lighting can be a little bit later. I guess that's okay. You can see my egg lamp in the background is on. Okay, so here we go. Like I said, today is the last day for Women's History Month. And I'll be honest with you, not a lot of outlets were really talking about this. I expected to see more from like the New York Times. I expected to see more in social media, celebrating, notable women of history. This is probably the first year. I mean, again, I don't have a Facebook page. I don't have Instagram or anything like that. I did have a TikTok page, but I don't have any followers on it, and I muted it. I kind of shut it down. So I didn't really see too much about people talking about women in general for Women's History Month. And so I thought, okay, well, it's the last day. Maybe I should do something. I do want to give a shout out to Josiah with Sirius XMU, not because I'm being paid or anything like that, but because I truly enjoy his streaming show, the show that he streams on Sirius XMU, and he actually did do sort of a show that's dedicated to women. So I thought that was kind of cool. But other than that, not too many people I noticed were really doing much for women. But other than that. Okay, so you guys can hear me okay. All right, let's get right into it. Since today is the last day of Women's History Month, I wanted to take an opportunity to talk about women and what they want. In order to understand what women want, perhaps it's helpful to know which stage they may be in. You may not be familiar with this concept, but this is a concept that Carl Jung spoke about, and there's some popular YouTube channels that have discussed the various aspects of these different stages of women. So let me just go ahead and list them out for you. The 4 stages of women in their personal growth cycle, keeping in mind that women may float in and out of these stages at any given time, so it's not a fixed point. The first stage is Eve, the stage of survival and instinct, and at time, reactivity. Oftentimes, Eve will act immediately upon her instinct instead of waiting. She may come across as clingy, and when she is hurt, she may lash out, or she may simply run away or flee. The space between stimulus and response is practically non-existent. Often absorbing every emotion in social settings, Eve will tend to drown in it. So she'll drown in other people's emotions. So she has no filter. Eve has no discernment and no ability to separate her own experience from everyone else. So typically Eves are younger, in my opinion. Typically Eves are younger, less individuated women, and are often working through their Eve stage somewhat clumsily, and they need guidance, whether they need guidance from an older woman or an older sister type or a mother. They do need guidance. The second stage is called Helen, named after Helen of Troy. So Helen represents all beauty and desire, and her projection dominates this stage. So her awareness becomes developed and is used for attachment. She understands her own patterns, but channels that understanding into trying to fix others, heal others, and be indispensable to others. Helen will see people's wounds and make it her mission to mend them. She believes that she can heal dysfunctional men, even to her detriment. Although her awareness has grown, it's still in service to external validation. She is definitely seeing the world and its complexity of humans more clearly. But Helen typically uses that clarity to bind herself more deeply to people who drain her. Helen usually comes at a time, in my opinion, when a woman might be starting to think of settling down and her nurturing nature starts to take over, and sometimes at her own peril. So the third stage is Mary. Mary is definitely a profound shift, and it takes place in a more concentrated, active discernment. So discernment is key with Mary, and is exercised in her choices, in her personal choices. So boundaries are set, real boundaries, not the performative kind that she may have been using before. She starts recognizing that her pattern of rescuing was never really about compassion, but perhaps it was about control or a need for discovery and trying to shape a person into what she wanted that person, oftentimes a man, to be. So it no longer becomes about needing to be needed or about avoiding the terrifying emptiness of not having someone else's crisis to manage. Mary finds her deeper awareness painful because it requires facing how much of what she was told about truth and love was not actually about truth and love, but something where truth and love was used to fabricate a reality to shield others. So Mary is the awakening stage. She has an awakening to darker, more manipulative secrets of others that have shaped her own personality, her worldview, and her way of being. And so, for instance, if you would just humor me for a minute and let me use my own personal story as an example of the Mary stage, my extreme sense of justice and my immediate anger to seeing injustice in the world, it stems from my own experience where uh, individuals in my family uh, experienced injustice themselves. So it had to do with my false family that I was raised in. So I was told I was loved and accepted by a family. But when it came time to actually prove it and put it on paper, my family instead informed me the truth about my origin story, which was that I was abducted from the real family that loved and accepted me. And I was given a false identity to present to the world. So statutory law was violated. So this was a severe injustice. I was ultimately kidnapped and moved across state lines. And this injustice that occurred against my biological father's side of the family has run through me and run through I'm so consciously aware of it now that it runs through my blood. It runs through my the cells in my body. So even though I didn't know of this consciously until recently, the Mary in me felt it on some deep cellular level and always would react passionately throughout life in the face of injustice. When I was a little girl, and I saw that somebody was taking too long on the monkey bars. We used to have to stand in line to play on the monkey bars, and I saw that somebody was taking too long, and thereby everybody in line wasn't getting their turn in time. I grabbed that person off the monkey bars and threw them up and said, "You've had enough time on the monkey bars. You need to share." So whenever there's a sense of injustice, I always respond really strongly to that, and I think it ties into the injustice that my biological father's side of the family experienced when I was ultimately taken from him and from the family. So it runs it in through my blood, right? So I understood it and I felt the betrayal on a very deep level. So this is the Mary in me. right? But the fourth stage, Sophia, is sort of where everything transforms completely. And this stage does not arrive gradually, it arrives like a door closing very quickly. So one day, a woman might still be processing, explaining herself, trying and hoping that the right words will make someone understand her. And then something in her, Sophia, recognizes that the words are simply falling on deaf ears. And the person Sophia was speaking to could care less. They could care less about her explanation, about, the facts. They are, in a sense, deaf to her honesty and care, and no amount of eloquence can overcome someone's determination and dedication to remain willfully ignorant. So I think I have some friends that I really respect that have operated in that Sophia stage since I've known them. And these are women that I consider friends and that I hold in high regard. So that recognition is the threshold of Sophia. And once it is crossed, she won't go back. So when Sophia activates, nothing else matters, not accusations, not attacks or findings that may attempt to undermine her or her reputation. She has no words to respond to it. She simply doesn't care. This isn't humiliation or depression or withdrawal out of fear or embarrassment. Sophia is a deliberate, conscious quieting in the form of judgment against her accusers or her tormentors or her violators. She is not begging to be seen or understood. She does not need anyone else to acknowledge a truth they already know to be true. Just making sure my microphone's actually on. In a Sophia stage, begging or over-explanation is not an option. It's a sign of weakness. And Sophia is not weak. She no longer needs to be understood by people who consistently choose not to, and who she realizes are kind of beneath her, ethically, morally, and intellectually, and even spiritually. This is not arrogance, it's discernment. It's wholeness. It's the refusal to let her vital energy leak out to people who have no good intention toward her. And it's at this point that people usually become nervous because Sophia is a force to be reckoned with, not a scattered over-explainer that seeks validation and approval. And I've been in that stage, in that sort of Eve stage where I felt I needed to over-explain and really make my point known. I've been there. I think we all have. It's important to recognize the various stages that we've been in. We're not too proud, right? So when a woman becomes someone who sees everything and needs nothing from the people they're seeing, total perception with zero dependency, she becomes impossible to control. So when in this space of psychological sovereignty, where the data she's collected over the years, and she can behave with devastatingly accurate precision in every situation, Sophia has created a stunning balance of feeling deeply without letting that feeling destroy her. So that may be the truest marker of the ultimate stage, the Sophia stage, where your feelings no longer dictate your action. Feeling simply becomes information. You are informed. It's data that passes through your integrated wisdom before it reaches behavior. So it holds all the words that she no longer needs to say. Now, you might recognize yourself, especially speaking to the women out there. Again, today is the last day of Women's History Month. So if you recognize yourself in this, and if the silence has been growing, not as absence, but as presence, then you're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself in a way that lasts. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are really finding themselves. Let me see if I can bring up the chat first. Great, okay. So, and again, this is not, none of these stages are stages that you should be ashamed of. None of these stages are about trying to achieve something. These stages, and I even hesitate to call them stages and to even give them numbers because you may be in an Eve stage one day and in a Sophia stage the next, or in a Mary stage the day after. So these stages aren't something that you achieve, it's something that you arrive to when everything else falls away, especially the Sophia stage. So when these four stages, Eve, Helen, Mary, and Sophia, are recognized by men in women, then understanding what women want and who women are becomes crystallized in a man's own consciousness. So, given that this is the last day of Women's History Month, as I've mentioned, perhaps we should reflect on the age-old question that has marked the passage of time since the Garden of Eden. What does a woman truly want? So there's societal expectations that claim to answer this question. And there's plenty of men out there that think they know the answer. And even women themselves have answered the question with watered down explanations that seem to trivialize the question itself. But most never really get anywhere. They never get anywhere near an honest answer. Instead, women seem to dole out the comfortable answers, the safe ones, and the kind of answers that make everyone feel comfortable and safe in modern culture. But let's go a little bit deeper. So now that we've established the four stages of a woman, what about the stage or type of woman that has been reduced to something selfish, almost almost evil, and is always rebuffed in every setting? I'm talking about the Machiavellian woman. What about her? So Niccolo Machiavelli spent his life studying the raw mechanics of human nature. Like a woman at her Sophia stage, he wasn't interested in comfortable answers. He was only interested in what was true. And so what he witnessed hundreds of years ago in courts and corridors of Renaissance Florence is still playing out in every relationship, every dynamic, and every silent negotiation between men and women today. What Machiavelli witnessed was the deep structural truth about desire itself, about what creates attraction, respect, lasting devotion, and what quietly destroys them. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that fortune is a woman, and if you wish to keep her, it is necessary to beat and subdue her. Taken literally, that sentence is indefensible. Agreed. But Machiavelli was almost never speaking literally. He often spoke in the language of metaphor and power dynamics. So what he was really describing was the relationship between force and desire, and between certainty and attraction. He was saying that fortune, like desire itself, does not reward the passive. It rewards the bold. So you have a need, but you also have a choice, right? So here's some uncomfortable truth that Machiavelli and what he was circling is really all about. Women at their deepest level of their psychology do not desire a man who needs them. They desire a man who chooses them. So if you're a man and you're watching this and you're frustrated because you want to be in a relationship, and here we are at the tail end of Women's History Month, and I'm sort of giving you a clue about what women want. So you might want to pay attention. So women want a man who chooses them. They do not want a man who needs them. The difference sounds subtle, but it's not. A man who needs a woman is, by definition, dependent on her. His emotional state rises and falls with her approval. Do I have another troll? Make sure. I'm going to interrupt myself and make sure Yep. So there is a good chance that we may lose connection. This happened last time I had my little friendly troll. Trolls will be ignored, and I'll just keep reading, keep talking. So his emotional state rises and falls with her approval. His identity is partially constructed around her presence, and while this might feel like love, and sometimes it genuinely is, it does create a psychological dynamic that becomes over time profoundly unattractive. Dr. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist at Rutgers University, spent decades studying the brain chemistry of romantic love. Her research found that the dopamine system, which is the brain's reward circuitry, is activated not by certainty, but by variable reward, the same mechanism that makes social media addictive. So when a person is completely predictable and completely available and completely devoted without reservation, the dopamine system kind of shuts down and it kind of quiets down, doesn't it? The chase is over. The mystery has dissolved, and with it, desire also dissolves. So, this is what Machiavelli understood intuitively centuries before neuroscience gave us the vocabulary to explain it. He observed it in the courts of Florence and in the behavior of noble women toward their husbands and their lovers. The husband, stable and present and devoted, was often the one she respected least, whereas the lover, who was unpredictable and dangerous and unavailable, was the one who occupied her mind. Not because women are irrational or cruel, but because the human brain is wired to pursue what it cannot truly possess. This is not about manipulation. So, husbands, boyfriends out there, you men, please don't go around making yourself dangerously unavailable. That is not the lesson here. It's not to play games or manufacture mystery. That's a shallow reading and it produces shallow results. It's a stupid trick. The real lesson is this: have a life so compelling and so genuinely full that your presence is a gift rather than a given. A man deeply invested in himself and his mission, his passion, his work, his worldview, his friendships, his personal growth, and a man who is, in the truest sense, going somewhere, is inherently more magnetic than a man whose entire world orbits around one single woman. So let's talk about the art of presence, also known as something called virtu. There is a concept in Machiavellian thought that doesn't get discussed a lot when you're talking about relationships, and it's called virtue, not virtue in the moral sense, but virtue, as Machiavelli defined it, a kind of dynamic, forceful excellence, the capacity to impose your will on circumstances and to act decisively in the face of uncertainty, to be, in a word, formidable. You will see women in their Sophia stage behaving this way, and I would say that this is where you would start to transition into that Machiavellian woman. You're formidable, steady, standing in truth. Machiavelli believed that virtù was the one quality that fortune, and by extension desire, could not resist indefinitely. So think about the men throughout history who were considered irresistible. Not necessarily the most handsome and not always the most wealthy. The ones who generated the most intense, lasting desire were almost always men of extraordinary presence, men who would walk into a room and change its very atmosphere. Julius Caesar had this, Napoleon had this, even fictional figures like Mr. Darcy or Don Draper had it. So I'll tell you a personal story. Once, when my husband and I were at an event in San Francisco, I was wearing a beautiful gown and he was wearing a suit. And when we entered into the event, the crowd of people that were there sort of milling about, talking, they parted like the Red Sea and we walked down, and this was all done instinctually. This wasn't done, you know, there was no preparation for this. This was all instinct because we showed up at the right time. We had the right attitude, and especially my husband sort of commanded the room with his presence and took me by the arm, and we walked down the center of the room, and the whole crowd parted. So that's, if you want to know what women want a strong presence, a noble presence, someone who they can take your arm and walk confidently through, you know, the streets of New York City, or small little events, you know, small events where maybe people are milling about and talking and networking, you know. Um, so only rarely had we ever really experienced this type of response from the public. But as the line in Pride and Prejudice says, there's something about his air or the way he talks. So we're getting close to what women want here, aren't we? They want nobility. They want a commanding presence, confidence, and someone who will decide on something. You are deciders. You're not necessarily doers, right? You're deciders. You've decided. And this is not always physical perfection. It's a quality of self-possession so complete that it creates a kind of gravitational field. In their presence, you feel something that important that is happening. So that's the energy that my husband and I gave off that night at the event. Women are not interested in recklessness, but they also don't want a wishy-washy type who can't make his mind up on how he feels about her. They want commitment, and they want even the audacity to announce what they want in the face of circumstances that might not support that audacity. It's brave to be audacious and firm. The man who waits for the perfect moment, or who hedges his declarations, or who softens himself to avoid rejection, communicates at a deeper level uncertainty. And a man who is not sure of himself does not spark certainty in a woman. She will pull back from that. She won't feel safe. And also, let's talk about tension. So women need tension, women and men, they both need tension, but let's not confuse it with fighting or drama. That's not what tension is. Tension comes from two people who are independently whole. They choose each other across the space of their separateness. Esther Perel, the Belgian psychotherapist, put it this way: desire needs air. It needs space. It cannot survive when two people are fused. Couples who maintain vibrant long-term desire preserve a sense of mystery and individuality within the relationship. So the parallel is clear. Too much availability erodes attraction, and too much distance erodes connection. So this delicate balance is where desire lives. And if you want to know what women want, then be brave enough to enter into that space where that delicate balance lives. As Machiavelli wrote, to be a prince among men, a man must be merciful, faithful, humane, and sincere. But more importantly, a man must be these things to his core. The same principle applies in relationships. A man who is consistently himself and who has a clear identity and stable values and a predictable emotional core, even amid changing circumstances, creates a specific kind of safety which women feel most comfortable in. I felt that this was really important, that this should really land to you, because we're in this really unstable place right now, at least in the United States. We're at like 4.3% unemployment rate, and that's a conservative number. Just today, Oracle laid off 30,000 employees. We're on the brink of, well, we're in the middle of war. I mean, I don't even think that our federal budget has been passed completely. I think we're about 95% there. So we are in a very unstable place in this country. by all means. And I do believe that things will start to be more unrecognizable in the country as a whole, which is why it's so important for men, if they want to know what women want, you don't necessarily even have to be employed. But while you're looking for that job, if you have projects, if you have things that keep you going, if you have, if you wake up at the same time every day and do something for yourself and for the family every day, work in the yard, maybe, you know, fix the car, I don't know, but you've got something to show that you're making an effort to keep your family safe and to keep them to show that you're caring for them, you probably will hear less and less nagging from your wife or your significant other about why don't you go get find your job. It's like the market is horrible now. The job market basically is non-existent. It's crickets out there. Nobody's getting hired. So men are going to have to find different ways to provide that steady environment where he sticks with the routine and it will soothe the woman's anxiety and provide a safe place to land. It's not within the safety of boredom, but the safety of reliability, knowing that this person will not collapse under pressure or will not become someone else when things get too hard and will not need to be constantly managed or reassured. And I think women have to really work on that. I think that women in general are managers. They want to manage the household, they want to manage the children, they want to manage their husbands. I mean, hell, I've even had friends come over and I've tried to manage our fun time. Like I've been too controlling in that sense. And so I've learned to let that go and not be that way anymore. So I think that this is, if the man is showing that in these really uncertain times, if the man is showing um, some sort of, uh, you know, um, safety and reliability, some exercise towards, having a thing that he does every day, which will present stability to the woman, that she will be less inclined to manage the hmm, the situation, right? So, okay. Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate I appreciate you saying that to me. So let's see, where are we? Knowing that this person will not collapse under pressure, will not become someone else when things get too hard, and will not need to be constantly managed or reassured. So it's always fascinating to me how a man's behavior can help to diminish the parts of the woman that she doesn't really like about herself, or could accelerate those things that she doesn't like about herself. So this relationship is so symbiotic, and we all get into fights with our significant others. It happens, and if she escalates her emotions, then he will match that and he will escalate his emotions. So it's a delicate balance. So this is one of the most underrated qualities in a long-term partner, and it is what women want. They don't want you to be, they don't care if you're a millionaire or a billionaire. What they want is to see that you're making an effort towards stability, towards wholeness yourself. And in the face of war and in the face of tragedy and a treacherous job market, if a woman looks to her man and says, you know what, he's doing all these things and he's doing what's right for the family, she will feel less afraid. She will feel less afraid. So this is, and speaking of how women feel, let's talk about what women actually feel. So you notice that when women talk about their feelings about a man that they may be interested in, they don't talk about his looks or his income or his physicality. And I have a suspicion, I don't know for sure, but I have a suspicion that when a man is interested in a woman, that he too tends to go to these spaces that I'm about ready to talk about. And it's not what you think. So if a woman is interested in a man and she's discussing this particular man with her peers. Um, they don't talk about the looks, they don't talk about his income or his physicality. They go deeper. And it's at this point that you men should really lean in and listen. When a woman is interested in you and sharing her thoughts about you to her peers, these are the types of things that she is saying. He seems to be the kind of guy, the kind of man that is not easily impressed. Yet I feel he may be impressed by my choices or me. I know there are many women who are interested in him, but I'm getting the sense he's choosing me. He and I have these deep conversations where he shared things about himself. And so this inspires me to discover things about myself. So this is what Machiavelli meant when he said, fortune favors the bold. If you want to know what women want, then don't be aggressive or try to dominate the conversation. Instead, show clarity and direction and show some self-possession. A man who has done his internal work knows who he is and what he wants, and it radiates something no external achievement can fake. So a Machiavellian woman wants men to know what they want, say what they mean, and follow through. They've raised the bar a little bit, haven't they? And unfortunately, women who raise the bar about expectations and about truth, they're labeled as kind of bitchy or unstable in society. Isn't that sad? It shouldn't be like that. So the most attractive version of this is not withholding affection. It's giving it freely from abundance, not need. Saying, I want you without the desperation of, I need you to want me back. Okay. Fortune does favor the bold. So strip away the Renaissance language and a Machiavellian woman's desires become simple. Life does not reward passivity. It rewards intention and action. And in relationships, it looks something like this in modern relationships, making the phone call instead of sending the vague text. Or if you want to take it even a step further, do a face-to-face interaction on like Zoom or Teams or something, right? Saying what you actually feel. Be honest and be direct enough that your intentions are never in doubt. So intentions, I think being honest about your intentions toward her will help her to meet you where you are. And so I think in closing, I think what I have to say is that none of this works as a strategy. I'm just talking here. This isn't a strategy. You don't have to take notes and follow this particular formula. It's not like that. So the moment you try to use these ideas as techniques to get something from someone, then you've lost it. You've lost it. There's got to be a little magic and mystery in this as well. It's really just, again, I think it's just that fortune favors the bold, right? Because what makes men attractive to a Machiavellian woman, and if you want to know what she wants, is a realness to them. There needs to be a realness. A Machiavellian woman, like a Sophia, is the most formidable person in any room and is the one who wants nothing from it. So imagine being somewhere and you're in a room full of people and there's different personalities going on and different energy is being passed around. And there's one or two women and men in that room that don't need you, that don't want anything from you. That is such a unique place to be, right? And every once in a while I'm there and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes no one's always in that space. I mean, that's a space that we strive for, right? So the most formidable person in any room is the one who wants nothing from it. Not because they're cold or indifferent or ruthlessly callous as they've been depicted, but because they are so fully complete in themselves that their presence feels like a gift, not a request. So a man is going to recognize this and rise to the occasion, right? So that kind of presence, when your instincts tell you what women want, quietly changes everything. So that's really all I have to say about that. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope you enjoyed it. It just felt like, here we are on the last day of Women's History Month, and I didn't really see a lot of um, pieces. I didn't, usually you read a piece about Eleanor Roosevelt or Queen Elizabeth or something. I didn't even see that. Now, maybe I just missed it because, like I said, I'm not really on social media. But I don't know. It just felt like it kind of got passed over this whole month, and I was like, "Wow, is today the last day? I think I should probably do something." So I hope you guys got something out of it. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Have a great afternoon, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon. Bye.
You can help us continue our work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Book of Hours, or leave us a one-time donation at paypal.me/Book of Hours. Or you can use Cash App. Thank you.